everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-hosts Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And guys, it is game week again as the UAB Blazers travel to Annapolis, Maryland, to take on the Navy Midshipmen this Saturday on Veterans Day at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. If you cannot make it up to Annapolis, the game will be televised on CBS Sports Network. And, guys, really quick before we get started, if you are listening to this free show and you are not subscribed to the Patreon, definitely check out the Patreon. We just recapped UAB basketball's season opening loss to Bradley, 73-71 in overtime on the Patreon. Also, tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, there's a interview that I had, another one-on-one with Trent Dilfer. Really good stuff, and just $5 a month gets you access. Guys, we've already done over like 43, 44 episodes on that Patreon. So if somebody's waiting to join, why haven't you? Go ahead and jump in, and you'll immediately have access to all 40-ish episodes on the Patreon bonus feed. So check it out if you have not already, including other interviews. There was a one-on-one with Andy Kennedy we dropped last week. Basketball interviews, football player interviews. So yeah, if you are just sitting on the sidelines, it's definitely time to jump in, especially with basketball and football going on at the same time. Great content for just $5 a month. But with that out of the way, guys, UAB can keep their bowl hopes alive by getting a dub this Saturday on Veterans Day against Navy. And we'll, get to previewing in a little bit. But this is a very winnable game. Wouldn't you guys say so this Saturday in Annapolis?
Yeah, man. I think so. I was kind of surprised, like, looking at the film, looking at that Temple film. But I shouldn't be surprised, like, doing more research. I see that Navy is just as banged up as we are. They had a lot of guys that went down. I think they were saying they were down to like third or fourth string quarterback, honestly. I don't know who will be starting, but I forgot the guy's last name that started that Temple game. John, do you remember?
It was Arline, or no, it wasn't Arline. Oh, it was Arline. Okay.
Yeah, it was Arline. They said he was like the fourth string guy, and that's understandable with Navy's play style. They're very physical. No matter who, I would say this with Navy, no matter who is on the field for them, they will be physical and they will be disciplined. So, but still talent, top end talent is talent. But yeah, it's talent wise, it's very winnable. I think we clearly have the better talent on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I think the question is, Jimmy, will we be sound enough and will we be disciplined enough to really limit what this team want to do?
Yeah, that's a good question, Darian. It's certainly a winnable game. I mean, you look at the Vegas line, I think it opened up around 5 points in UAB's favor, and I think that's came down a little bit to a field goal in UAB's favor. But, one of the keys for me is going to be, how will UAB handle this environment, right? It's going to be a big stage on national television, Veterans Day, as we've already said, and expect a big crowd from Navy. Navy's averaging over 30,000 a game attendance-wise in the 2023 season. And a question that I have for you, Darian, and you, John, is how many times do you think that UAB has gone on the road, dating back to, let's just say, return and win a road game in front of this kind of crowd? Let's say 20,000 plus.
It's not often. I mean,
Tulane
or Marshall a couple years ago. Like, there's not many. Jimmy, what's the answer?
So I went all the way back to 2010, looking at box scores on the road. And in 2021, UAB won at Southern Miss. Southern Miss had 21,500. In 2017, UAB won at UTSA, just north of 20,000. Before that, we go back to Darian Smith's playing days. Darian, do you remember in 2012 going on the road in Hattiesburg and defeating Southern Miss in front of a crowd of
Overtime.
almost 23,000. Well, that was 2010. Did you play them twice on the road, or was it just once?
I played them once, so I must have been gone by then.
So 2010. So that is actually the biggest crowd that UAB has defeated on the road, and we're not counting bowl games, neutral site. We're talking about true road games. Darian Smith led them Blazers on that field in 2010, won in
There you go.
overtime in front of 26,415 people, and boy were they pissed and scared when they saw Darian walking out of that
Hey,
tunnel.
let me tell y'all something about this game real quick. Do you know when I knew like half of the players that were on the field? I was committed to Southern Miss. That's why I got such a dislike. I was committed to Southern Miss. Then the coach got fired, and they rescinded my scholarship. I'm like, if them dudes. So when we got out there, a couple of my homeboys played for him, so they told him my name. As soon as we get out before the ball is ever snapped, you awkwardly sit around. They was like, yeah, Pee Wee. Yeah. They were saying stuff like that. I'm like, huh? I'm like, okay. I was like, I was like, man, I was dropping my F bombs, like, man, I don't give a F about y'all.
Just like
They
you
was
do on
so,
Twitter.
yeah, just like no, I have a policy. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, he does not do that anymore.
but yeah, that's a cool stat. I would have thought it would have been Tulane. What was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so that was the when we played Tulane on the road a couple years ago. It was the same year. I think they had the bad weather, and so they were going through some challenges getting people out then. And there's been some games where we've won games in front of 18, 19,000. But my point of the whole question is that yes, it's a winnable game, but doing this on the road in front of this type of crowd would be something that UAB football certainly doesn't do regularly and really has not done. This would be because we anticipate, right? I mean, it's going to be what, a sellout. John, you're going to be there. I mean,
Oh
they
yeah,
haven't.
yeah.
It's going to be 30,000 plus. So this would be something that UAB football has not done, at least dating back to 2010. When Darian was stomping on some people. So it'd be quite the accomplishment if UAB is able to go in there and get this W.
Yeah, well, speaking of first times, I mean, this is the first time that these two programs have ever met on the football field. So this will be the first meeting between UAB and Navy. And hey, UAB is looking for their first road win of the year. UAB has not won on the road all year under Trent Dilfer. So definitely a good chance to get the first dub, get the first road win, and get the first road win in the American Athletic Conference too this Saturday. So there's a lot of good opportunities to make first this Saturday. But yeah, Jimmy, you mentioned the environment. It's going to be electric. It's going to be a sold out stadium at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. On Veterans Day, I can't wait. Yes, I am making the trip up. We're leaving Friday. We can't wait to get down there.
Are you going to the beach when you're up there, John?
No, I did. Hey, it's funny you said that. I was just telling Trent today. I said, "Hey, man, I gotta come clean. Every time that we go to the beach during a UAB football game, UAB has never won." So he kind of his jaw dropped. So
Trent banned fall break in prior stops. He's
No
about to
fall
ban
break,
beach
man.
trips
I
for
was
John.
gonna say, are y'all about to ban beach trips for me during the football season? I'll let you talk that over with my wife and see how she handles that.
Y'all can go somewhere inland. Like, go somewhere inland, man. Like, just like go to LA. Like, chill out, something. Like, don't
That's
go
right.
to the beach. Maybe it's the beach. Maybe that's it. Maybe you can go on vacation. Just don't go to the beach. How about that?
Maybe so. Well, the good thing though is that my daughter Nora, she'll start first grade next year, so I don't think they get a fall break, or if they do, it's not a full week. So we won't be able to make those trips in the fall.
So Nora is going to be UAB's safe. Okay.
we'll say that. Yeah, we'll say that. But guys, kind of just jumping back into this game. Darren, you mentioned it earlier. You put on that Navy Temple film. Temple got after Navy up front on the defensive side of the ball. We've looked at a few games of Temple film, and that defensive front really hasn't done much this season. But that's got to be a good thing, if you're a UAB fan, watching that film and seeing how that defensive line for Temple got after and in the backfield almost instantaneously in the Navy backfield, and that's something you have to do against a triple option. You have to plug the interior, get number one, get to the quarterback, number two, get to the fullback, and stop that. Because if Navy gets their fullback going, I mean, it's over with. They that offense relies. Oh, okay, Jimmy, you got a stat? Go for it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're talking about the Temple defensive line play because one of the keys, for this game, in my opinion, is that UAB is going to have to win those early down situations. They're going to have to force Navy into uncomfortable situations. We know that Navy this season is passing the ball a little bit more, but we've got to rack up some TFLs, and specifically the magic number for TFLs, in my opinion, for UAB in this game is 5. I say that because in all 5 of Navy's losses, the opponent has registered at least 5 TFLs. And in Navy's 3 wins, 2 out of the 3 opponents had less than 5 TFLs. And the only exception was Charlotte. Charlotte racked up 9 TFLs against this Navy team. And the Charlotte defense was not the problem. They actually held Navy to 14 points. It was just that Charlotte's offense was trash. And conversely, on the UAB side, UAB's defense has accounted for 5 tackles for loss in 3 games this year, all of which were the games in which UAB won. So, in other words, UAB has not recorded at least 5 TFLs in any of their 6 losses. So the magic number is 5 TFLs.
What a freaking stat!
I'm telling you,
Boom.
man.
Like,
that's what's up.
If you don't have a Jimmy on your squad, man, what are you doing? But
isn't that wild though on both sides? Like it was just the magic number just hit 5.
That is amazing. And what I've seen from Temple's D line is on the edges were really important, right? So Nakia Eason, Michael Fairbanks, those guys are going to have to be extremely sound. They're going to have to be extremely sound. You can't go for the eye candy because if you do, that's when they pop it on the outside. So they, number 34 and number 6, the outside backer for Temple, they both had really good games because they did their jobs. They did their jobs and they were able to stop a lot of plays, just those 2 guys alone. And on the inside, all you have to do is be stout. You don't have to make the play, but you can't get pushed all around the field. So this is going to be for Fish and Tyreek Howard and Kevin Penn, those guys in the middle. If you get blown up in the middle, that's when you can give it to the fullback. And I think Rusall, this is going to be a very, very good test for Rusall, right? On eye discipline. He's young. He's the freshman, but especially that second half. And I know the points or whatever, but the points of the FAU game, I know, they scored 28 in that second half, but especially in those late stops, I saw Rusall become a lot more disciplined, man. This guy's going to be a monster, especially next year, but I'm glad that he got that experience last game because him and Michael Moore and Jackson Bratton, those guys are going to just have to play discipline. So sound on the edges, stout in the middle, and very just smart on the inside. And we can rack up TFLs. They will be there. I wonder how banged up Navy is on the offensive line. They had a couple of guys go down that Temple game. It was like 2 or 3 offensive linemen because their style is just so physical. So I'm not even sure. And they may be playing more musical chairs than we've had to play. But I'm confident. But I really want to see how we start. Y'all remember Georgia Southern, how that game started.
We can't have that.
And then you remember UTSA, right? So, and those were on the road, and that scares me. So I just wonder whether we on kickoff, will it be a big return to the 50-yard line, or will it be a touchback, or will we just get them down at the 20? Like, I wonder, or if we get the ball, will we have a quick turnover and the nerves? Like, it's an early telltale sign. We went on the road in Tulane, and we didn't start off like that, right? We started off pretty good, and that ended up being a close game that we had a good chance of winning. So it's going to be electric. I know, I'm guessing it's going to be way more than 30,000. And these guys will be inspired. Navy already plays physical and fast and sound, but they are going to be motivated to win this game. You can bet that. So we have to match that intensity from the start.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned, Darian, kind of they're beat up. And I mean, they have played 4 quarterbacks this year so far because they're beat up at the quarterback position as well. They've got a really talented freshman quarterback, Braxton Woodson, that comes in every now and then, but they really did ride what's his name again? Arline, yeah, against Temple. But yeah, UAB is just going to have to play very sound defense, which, I mean, can we get 4 quarters of that? We haven't gotten that all year. But what it comes down to, my opinion, is you're going to have to tackle well. That's a no-brainer. But first down is going to be such a critical down. Watching at least, well, really on both sides of the ball, Navy struggles mightily in converting third downs. Like, they're legit one of the worst in the country in converting their third downs. And what team Jimmy mentioned earlier about teams that have been successful against Navy getting the TFLs in the backfield, teams have been successful in stopping them on third down because they don't allow 3 or 4 or 5 yards on first down. They get a TFL, or if they allow anything, it's only a 2 to 3 yard gain. UAB is going to have to be ready to go on first down. And when you look at this Navy option too, folks think triple option is like the old school, just grind the clock out, which they do grind the clock out, but they run a little up tempo, no huddle. They really don't get in huddles as often as they used to, at least in watching film. So they hurry up and get to the line, and that doesn't allow the opposing team to substitute as much on defense, as they used to traditionally against a triple option. And Darian did mention too, they are throwing it a lot more. Now, granted, they're not throwing it successfully, but yeah, it's going to have to come down to that front defensive line for UAB and the linebacker, whether that's Everett Russaw or Jackson Bratton, to play just fundamental defense. Stick to your assignments, and hey, if they break a big play, which they're going to, that triple option, they'll bust a 15-20 yard run every now and then. But hey, shake it off. Next play up. Let's go back to the fundamentals and stop them again. They're going to break some big runs.
And they can be effective in the pass game because, especially with the play action, they are almost guaranteed to have one-on-ones. So when you have that, you have a chance every time you throw the ball, and it's an easy read for your quarterback. It's one-on-one. So you can get a guy on the seam in the middle of the field, and you can you can get a touchdown through that. So I shall be expecting that. I know Trent spoke about that when they throw it with intention. They know what they want to do. So we do need to get those TFLs so those passing situations are predictable. If you are in the 3rd and 3 and they're going in on their own 30-yard line, that might be a time to strike up one of those play actions and hit a guy with a double move over the middle. And that can stifle your pass rush as well because everybody's expecting pass, right? So you kind of get ready, and then you got to get into your move, and then the ball is already gone, versus just coming out and getting after them. You can get after this offensive line. They're not adept to pass blocking. You can tell that from the film. They did a lot better in the second half. I can give them that. But you can get after them. I think the key is just getting them in predictable situations, like John alluded to, those TFLs on first down, and just getting them behind the sticks and then working your magic. But I think another key for the defense really is the offense, and I think that the offense, we can put up a lot of points on. They're a decent run stopping team. I just don't think they're the best, even though they got turnovers that game. Though most of those turnovers were by the mistake of the offense. I don't think the defense is good, right? And who am I to say? Because look at our team defense. But I think our offense against their defense is a clear mismatch, especially throwing the ball.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, let's flip it over to UAB's offense and what they need to do against this Navy defense. Yeah, I mean, UAB is just going to have to be, as prolific on offense as they have all year. This Navy, as Darian just alluded to, Navy is very susceptible to the passing game, and what's UAB's strong suit? The passing game. Temple, Kurt Warner's kid, really lit them up last week. You watch UAB to try to do some similar things, spread the Navy defense out, and kind of get after them that way. But what UAB is going to have to do is kind of slow it down a little bit, not go as up tempo as they do normal games. Just kind of slow it down and kind of let the UAB defense get, catch a breather on the sideline. And what did UAB kind of struggle with, especially in the third quarter and early on in the fourth quarter in the FAU game? They just couldn't move the ball. They get three and out, or if they did, it would just be one first down. UAB is going to have to get some long drives established this Saturday at Navy and to get points on the board. Red zone, you're going to have to get points on the board. But Jimmy, what stands out to you just looking at the Navy midshipman defense? And one of the guys that stands out to me is that 54 was that Will Harbor, that senior middle linebacker. He's a stud. But Jimmy, what do you say?
Well, you said two things that really caught my attention before we kind of transition to that. Talking about red zone, I definitely want to talk about the red zone. I want to talk about turnovers as well. And John, I think you had alluded to this in our group text exchange, talking about turnover margin for Navy. We've got to offensively not turn the ball over. So in Navy's 3 wins, the opponents have turned it over at least 2 times. I guess, wasn't it last week, John? You said that, FAU,
Yeah.
we couldn't turn over. Yeah.
I meant this week. Yeah, I meant this week.
I think as we, talk about, the game, it's going to be tough. It seems like we have these critical back-breaking turnovers. Darian referenced some of those early turnovers in some of the prior games, but we cannot turn the ball over because Navy's not going to do it, really on their end. So all of their, speaking of, Navy, all of their turnovers have came in their losses. So, turnovers, don't turn it over, but it's going to be especially important in a game in which Navy's going to try to control that clock. And red zone is going to be an important factor as well. You just referenced it, John. We've got to force Navy into field goal opportunities instead of letting them score touchdowns again. But the issue is that UAB is allowing opponents to score touchdowns of 71% of those red zone opportunities. It's 116th ranked in the FBS, and opponents have scored a total of 35 touchdowns against UAB in the red zone, which ranks dead last in the FBS. And so the good news for those of you listening, that Navy is not good in the red zone. So they're actually pretty much at the bottom of FBS in red zone scoring. So, but just wanted to mention that, red zone D is going to be critical in the turnover margin between both teams, going to be critical as well. Defensively, Trent's mentioned, just speaking on, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, is that they can certainly create havoc and they can throw different things at you. And, they're going to be versatile in terms of their defensive schemes, and they're going to try to really wreck you offensively. So it's going to be quite the challenge. When you look at Navy, they're only allowing, to score 23 points per game. Some of that's going to be due to the fact, again, that they're going to control the clock, and that's going to impact some of those defensive statistics as well. But overall, it's certainly going to be a challenge. And one thing that surprised me is that UAB's been running the ball offensively a little bit better, here in the last 2 or 3 games, and offensive line play has continued to, improve. But Navy's only allowing opponents to rush for 3.7 yards per carry, and so hopefully the UAB offense, offensive line improvement in the running back, specifically Jermaine Brown, getting going in a variety of different ways, are going to be able to get the running game going a little bit this week.
So, from there, look defensively, everybody talks about how you have to be sound against their offense, but the same thing remains for their defense. I think they try to stack the box. I always saw a hang defender to the boundary of the field, not to the boundary, to the wide side of the field. They always have an extra man right there lurking for contain. So they do a lot as to try to make you into a one-dimensional team. The thing is, I wouldn't mind being a one-dimensional team against them. I would pass it to open up the run. They throw a lot of looks at you. They are very exotic. It's so many blitzes. If you look at that Temple game, they have so many guys walked up. They're doing whatever they can because I think individually they are not good at pass rushing. They aren't at all. I think number 97 has a bull rush on them. That's about it. Like, there's not too many dynamic pass rushers on this team at all. So what do? They gamble. They will gamble. They're going to try to confuse you. They're going to do zone blitzes. It's going to be so many times where we're going to see a whole bunch of guys walked up. And it's going to be on our offensive line to communicate. Because Warner was able to get the ball off even when the offensive line didn't block. Man, sometimes it was two guys coming free and he just threw it quickly. And we don't need to have that happen. We need to know who's coming, call out the mic, and get it blocked up and be sound. If we get their blitzes, they're gonna throw a lot of blitzes to try to generate that pressure. If we get that blocked up, our weapons against their DBs, I don't think they have a shot. So I think the key is to pass to open up the run. They're decent at run stopping, and they're going to make you pass. That's our strong suit. We'll do that, right? I think we'll have a lot of shots open. Will the offensive line get it blocked up? Will they let this environment psych them out? Will it be too loud for them? Will they, sometimes we get frazzled. That's the one thing that has me afraid. They talked about not flinching. This is the ultimate not flinch game. If we don't flinch in this game, I think we win it pretty handily.
All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get into our predictions for this Saturday. Jimmy, I'm going to let you start. What's your official prediction for this Saturday?
When I was trying to think of the prediction, I was looking at just Navy's schedule, and I was trying to find like a common opponent. And, for me, when I was looking at who Navy's played, they obviously played North Texas at home earlier this season. North Texas has a very good offense and a very poor defense, especially against the run. And North Texas hung in there. It was a close game. I believe the final score was 27-24 in favor of Navy. And again, we talked about the turnovers earlier. North Texas turned it over twice. So in a close ball game in that kind of environment, it really did them in. At this point, I like to think of things logically. We haven't played a game in which we didn't turn it over. We haven't won a road game. We're not successful thus far this season in defending the run in terms of yardage. And so I think it's going to be, we talked about the environment, I think it's going to be tough. And so, I would love to be wrong, but I'm going to say that UAB comes up just a field goal short, and I'll take the same score, Navy 27 and UAB 24.
Well, we certainly hope you're wrong.
That's because John's going to be within like 10 miles of the beach.
But
so that also is a contributing factor.
Well, I'll take it. I think UAB gets it done. If you're a UAB fan listening, Navy on offense struggles mightily on third down conversions. They turn the ball over some. I think UAB's defense, the line has moved since we've been recording this episode. It was at UAB -3, and it's, Jimmy, what's it at now?
It's -2.5. We're shifting the lines.
Well, we'll shift it the other way once they listen to us, hopefully. But yeah, I think UAB gets it done. UAB's passing attack, I think, will be too much for the Navy defense. I think UAB makes a statement this Saturday. The defensive line should have some guys back, so UAB's defensive line should be the best that they've been all year. I think UAB gets it done 24-17 in a tight one. Darian, what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. Jimmy was talking about coming opponents at home, and I went with USF, right? Mm-hmm. The reason I went with USF is that was the team I was really gauging FAU off of, and they beat the brakes off USF, we beat the brakes off USF, and I was just kind of like, they've been my litmus test. And USF got at them 44-30 there. It's two reasons I'm picking us to win. It's kind of a blessing now that we were able to come back from that on that FAU game, because they had to deal with a lot of nerves. They had to deal with a lot of nerves, and then they had to learn something in that moment. And they got two key stops down the line. They really didn't flinch in that moment, right? And they made it happen. And secondly, it's like, I go back again, Navy is beat up. And I know we're beat up, but they're beat up as well, and I feel like that kind of evens it out. So I'm gonna go UAB 38, Navy 27.
Let's go.
Let's go.
38 points.
And Jimmy, you got me probably changing mine to 28-17 because I mean I think you're right. I think UAB needs to get at least 28 to get this dub.
One of the stats I saw that in Navy's 5 losses, 4 out of the 5 opponents scored at least 28 points. That one exception was Air Force. We know in the Service Academy games, those are low scoring outcomes anywhere. So I do think that if UAB is going to pull this out, they're going to need to score 28 plus points. And I for sure think it can happen. I just want to see, like John said last week, if you were to tell me right now that UAB were to turn the ball over one time, I think we win this game. If we turn it over more than once, I think that is where my prediction comes into play. And so hopefully I am dead wrong, and then UAB gets a massive win and they can come home and keep that bowl streak within grasp and come home in a game against Temple that they should be favored in. So that's what I'm hoping to be rocking and rolling with.
And one more. Sorry.
Go ahead, bro.
Well, I was just going to say one more thing, special teams wise. This Navy team forces a lot of muffed punts and muffed kickoffs. So that's something to kind of pay attention to, like with DMAC or Skull, whoever's back there returning kicks, or, Shaver, whoever it is. We're going to have to just pay attention. I don't know what it is. And it's when it's at Navy, too. Like, they force a lot. Like, South Florida in that game, that Darren was referencing, they had a muff punt, and it ended up resulting in 7 points for Navy. You look at the Temple game last week, when I know it was at Temple, but they forced 4 turnovers. And what was one of those 4? It was a muff punt. So UAB will have to be careful on special teams. I know. But yeah. Darren, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to reference, and that's kind of like influencing my decision. When I saw that Temple game, it's not like Temple just played really well. Temple did everything they could to give that game to Navy. The interception, that first interception and Warner threw, it was a miscommunication. He basically threw a punt up to the guy. Then you had a muff punt where the guy just dropped, and then you had a fumble where a guy he broke. He was like streaking down the field. It was like a 70-80 some yard gain, and he got sloppy with the ball, and some guy just reached out desperation. He just dropped the ball. So, and they did make one good play on the interception. I give them that last interception, that was a good play. So, but Temple did everything they could to give that game to Navy, and Navy still couldn't really take full advantage of it. And so it's not only the turnovers, it's the area of the turnover, right? If we're going to turn the ball over, let it be on our side of the field going in. Don't give them a short field. That's my whole thing. Like, when he broke, I was like, well, at least he broke all the way down the field to where Navy couldn't convert. They couldn't go the full field, right? So if we have turnovers close to so they only have 20 yards to go in, I'm worried. But if we throw a pick or something and it's at least past midfield, I have way more confidence.
Yeah. And speaking of Veterans Day this Saturday, I know we have a few veterans that listen to this Blazer Victory podcast. We thank you so much. And hey, UAB, get the dub this Saturday for the UAB fan veterans. A programming note, though, we will not have an instant reaction Saturday night. Obviously, I will be in Annapolis, but as long as the hotel Wi-Fi is good, we'll plan to do a Sunday morning reaction for the Navy game. But Jimmy, you want to go ahead and send us out?
Hey, best of luck on the trip, John. Hope you and the fam have an awesome time. Blazer fans, have a great week. Blazer Nation, just blaze.